This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be a substitute for mental health services.
Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer, member FINRA, SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Financial Hellness are not affiliated.
Welcome to Financial Hellness. I'm Stephanie, along with my childhood friend Chad. This is the place where we unravel the intricate connections between financial well-being and mental health. In each episode, we explore the complexities of personal finance and how our monetary choices impact our emotional and mental states.
Here is where we also discuss and learn how to get better at everything from budgeting to investments to insurance. We share personal stories, expert insights, and practical tips to help you navigate those connections between your financial stability and mental wellness. Make sure to show some love by liking and following us. It really helps a lot. So let's get started. Did you want to go first?
Our mental well-being is directly linked with our financial well-being. We can bring some normalizing and even some humor to these situations. You know, we're both from New Orleans. We like to bring a little fun to the table.
Yeah. It becomes empowering and it becomes something that you control versus something that controls you. So Steph, you mentioned that we've known each other now. We've been friends, we've known each other, however you want to put it, for 40 plus years.
Yes.
Which puts us, that's a very long time ago.
Right around 29 years old.
So what's funny about that, I was thinking about this today, like I don't remember actually like a pivotal moment where we actually met. You've just sort of always been in my life.
Yeah. I don't have like a specific memory. I started in fifth grade. I started in fifth grade. Yeah. Which,
Right.
I mean, I was like, I felt like the new kid pretty much through high school.
Did you really?
A little bit, yeah, because a lot of y'all have been together since kindergarten.
Right. No, that's true. That's true. I mean, we've all been together since we were little.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, like I look back at all those days and those, particularly the photos, like the pictures of all of us when we were, and it always seemed like we were always together. Like we were always like in groups of friends, like different people, but we were always together in those.
It's true. Yeah. All those group pictures, and your group of guy friends would hang out with my group of girlfriends. But I mean, like even in fifth grade, I think that's actually the year that you start really hanging out with, like the girls will hang out more with the boys.
Right.
You blend a little bit more than, a little more segregated when you're in first or second grade.
Right.
But
yeah, that's true.
Playing Foursquare.
Well, it's interesting because we grew up in New Orleans, right? So,
right.
Going through, I was actually having a conversation today with our neighbor's daughter, who's 8, 9, 10, something like that, and she was doing a report on Louisiana. And one of the questions she asked me was, what was it like growing up in Louisiana? And the first thing that popped in my head was, it was so much fun. Like, it was so much fun growing up in New Orleans. And I told her, I was like, we had Mardi Gras, like, we played in the street all the time. We had groups of friends that we hung out with all the time. Like, it was just so much fun growing up in New Orleans back then.
Oh my gosh. And it's Mardi Gras season now, which is like, it's still fun.
And I told her, I was like, yeah, it's Mardi Gras season now. I even gave her like a bushel of beads that I had from my closet. But it was also funny, like back then, particularly like especially in high school, where we hung out. Like we hung out in bars like adults back then when we were in high school. So it was a completely different time.
It really was. I mean, I guess that's the benefit of the 4+ decades of knowing each other as we have a little history.
Right, right. Well, it's funny because we were just talking about our graduation picture, one of the pictures from our graduation that just resurfaced a couple days ago of one of our classmates pouring. I don't even know what the hell he was pouring down my throat. I think one was tequila.
Triple sec,
I
maybe?
think one was triple sec. I think one was tequila, and I think it
Hmm.
was like a homemade margarita that he was double fisting into my mouth the night of our graduation, which these things were like what's cool about growing up in New Orleans that these things were like completely sanctioned by our
And
parents.
there were parents there. I know there were
Yeah,
parents there.
yeah,
It was
they
at
probably
a
were.
classmate's home.
Yeah, so they probably weren't watching that so much. That the details, like they knew what we were doing, but they didn't want to like get bogged down with the details of it.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's such a different time in the sense that that was a norm. And I would be really curious to know, like, how is it now? Like,
Yeah,
I'm sure the graduation party is not, they don't serve hard alcohol.
yeah, I would hope not. I would hope not, but it's a different time, right? I know that
Yeah.
even
The
now
drinking
having,
age was different even. It was 18.
well, it was in New Orleans.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I don't know about other places,
I
but
don't think it was anywhere else.
but but interestingly, when I went off to college, I remember being because I went to college in Vermont
Mm,
and and I went to school with a bunch of kids from the Northeast and I remember going to parties as a freshman and kids getting a lot of times would
yeah,
be kids who would have to go to the hospital to get their stomachs pumped because they drank too much.
right,
And I
right.
remember like growing up in New Orleans, I was like rookies, like like okay. Um, but
Yeah.
no, it's
At
just a
Georgia
different time.
too, like all these kids from these teeny tiny little towns, they were, free for the first time. And
Mhm.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
holding back some hair while people were throwing up. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we could probably go down that rabbit hole for a long time. But again, we went off to school, we
Yeah.
became adults, we kind of went into our careers and then we
Hmm.
sort of resurfaced into each other's lives, what, like 15, 15, 20 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, probably around like the Facebook
Yeah.
origins. That's
Yeah.
probably when we really reconnected. And I do remember you helped me with my dissertation by connecting me with some of your family members because I was looking to explore the experiences of kids who had to evacuate during Katrina. I was looking to explore like their academic and their social emotional experience of the
Did,
evacuation
did I
process.
connect you with my niece back then?
Yes.
I think I connected you with
Did.
my niece because I want to say she would have probably been in high school.
Yeah, and I reintroduced myself to her at your wedding. She had no memory of.
Yeah, no, she would have been in middle school back then
Yeah,
during
yeah,
Katrina. She would have been in
yeah.
middle school.
So I was probably she was probably in high school when I spoke with her because it was, several years later. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I until you said that, I completely spaced that. I completely
Yeah.
spaced that.
So I think you and I like spoke to each other, not just through Facebook. I think you and I reconnected like on the phone at that
Right.
point. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Facebook's been good for that, like just connecting with old friends and everything else. But,
absolutely.
but yeah, like over the last 10 plus years, 15 plus years, it's just been great, like reconnecting and realizing how our lives have sort of intersected over the years. But no, it's been super fun just kind of reconnecting and
Yeah.
now you and I are in at least two separate group chats with friends.
Well,
And
and
so I think I
you are
talk to you like
such
every day.
I know, I know. We do talk every day, or at least exchange
Right.
Instagram
We exchange
pictures.
stuff every day.
But I will say, like, you're such a good connector. You'll start these group texts and you'll bring people together. And, you really have reconnected me with a lot of people from high school not even just people that we graduated with, but people who were a few years younger than us, like people that you stayed connected to. And so I'm really appreciative of that because I kind of wasn't connected with a ton of people.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful to be reconnected. I really am.
For me, I think part of it is once I left New Orleans and, went to school on the East Coast, moved out here to the Southwest in Albuquerque, and I just got completely, it became really important for me
Yeah.
to find ways to stay connected with folks. And then
Yeah.
two, growing up in New Orleans is such a unique experience that
Hmm.
being away, you sort of you miss that, and and to a certain degree, you kind of lose that. You lose that connection to Mardi Gras and to food and second lines and just all these different things that are part of life down there. You lose that. So for me, it's always been important to try to stay connected, but also just connect people that I think will get along and will work well together and will benefit from each other's relationships. So it became important, and I think a lot of it was just out of necessity or of maintaining my own connections to a certain degree.
Yeah. I've found that even more so after Katrina, but I think even before that, of course, but I think maybe I became much more aware of it after Katrina. I think New Orleans gets into your soul in a way, and maybe people feel like this about every place that they grow up, and but there's something so unique about having grown up in New Orleans, and I wear it with so much pride. Like I
Yeah,
feel so deeply honored that I know that might sound kind of corny, but
it
like
doesn't.
I carry it with me, and it's so important to me. And part of that is, like you said, it's the relationships and the connections. And the group text of our group from just our class is like, these are people who know my parents and have been to my house and played basketball in my driveway. And, like
Yeah,
people you don't have to explain things to about who you are.
right. You don't have to explain anything, but you're 100% right. Like our parents watched us all grow up together, and they got to know each other, and they got to become good friends, and it's just this really small bond. And I remember a couple of years ago we were talking about doing a class reunion, and one of the things I really wanted to do was have a social event at our class reunion where we actually invited our parents. The
Oh, I love
and
that.
I thought that would be kind of cool, especially now because we're starting
Mhm.
to lose parents, and
Yeah.
our parents' health isn't as good as it used to be, and I really want to be able to do that at some point. But
Yeah.
you mentioned Katrina, and it's sort of a good lead in to why we're doing this podcast. When Katrina hit, I was out here in New Mexico. I
Hmm.
was in Santa Fe, and it was like 60 something degrees. It was a beautiful, day, late summer, fall day. It was sunny, and I knew Katrina was hitting the coast. It
Hmm.
was hitting New Orleans. I was in Santa Fe at a conference, and I was checking in with some friends of ours, and I might as well have been on another planet. Like it was absolutely gorgeous. And
Yeah.
then, Katrina hit, and obviously the city flooded, the city was destroyed. My family, for the most part, had evacuated except for my dad. And my dad, didn't evacuate. There were some family issues. His mom didn't want to evacuate, and his brother didn't want to evacuate, so he ended up staying. And then he
Hmm.
was missing
Yeah.
for close to a week.
Oh my gosh.
And
God.
it
Oof.
was it was one of the most stressful things I've ever gone through. It was stressful
Yeah.
on my mom, on our family. It was definitely stressful on my dad, who actually is a disabled veteran. He served in Vietnam, and he ended up at the convention center.
Wow.
And one of the things he mentioned being at the convention center for 3 days, mind you, he spent one night on the interstate,
Right.
because the water was too high, so they couldn't come off. He spent one night in a house, like in a neighbor's house. One of the things he mentioned when he got to the convention center is that it felt like a war zone, like it felt like Vietnam. And he was
Yeah.
able to get extracted from the convention center. My cousin's a state trooper, got him out of there. It was just an awful thing. But the worst thing about that entire week, aside from my dad being missing for a week, and aside from my cousin being arrested, which was a whole nother story, just seeing all those people who were stuck out there,
Yeah.
and like it really hit me. And it was just rows and rows of mostly black people,
Yes.
just stuck with no help. And
And no one coming in. It was just unfathomable.
no one coming in, no one
Yeah.
coming in, like
And all the
country. And
reporters got there. I kept saying, how are the
yeah,
reporters there, but there's no aid? I don't
yeah.
understand this.
In this place where you have all these resources, right?
Mhm.
No resources were coming to these folks. And for me, it was just it was a core memory. Like it was a pivotal
Mhm.
thing for me in my life where, at that point I had just started my career as a financial advisor.
Uh-huh.
I'd only been doing that work for about 2 years. So I was still new in that world. Seeing all of that at that time, it just hit me that I just need to do some sort of education, financial literacy, financial help.
Mhm.
I've learned what all the tools are that people use.
Mhm.
And for the most part, the tools and the processes are the same for all people. And so what can I do to help people
Yeah.
get the information that I've learned, right? And so I started doing seminars. I started doing the first round of seminars I did was a financial education for African Americans. I got there was a local newspaper here in Albuquerque that catered mostly to the Black community, ran ads in there, connected with the ministers at the churches, like tried to get as many folks out to these things. I bought lunches for people and did it for a year. Did once a
Yeah.
month. We held different educational seminars, and that's really just sort of been something that I've done over the years is financial education. And when you reached out now, probably what, a year ago, you
Yeah.
were
I think it's
working
been
on,
maybe more. No,
maybe,
it's been 2 years. Yeah.
has it been that long?
Yeah. I was asked to help build some curriculum for college athletes and for high schoolers who are potentially going to be working into college athletics. And one of the big pieces that was needed was financial literacy. And I don't have that area of expertise. So yeah, I reached out to you for that. And yeah, that's when we started talking about the need for financial literacy. We were talking specifically about college athletes at the time, but it
Right.
has kind of morphed and evolved over the past 2 years to just include so many different people because getting college curriculum together and there were a lot
Yeah.
of different logistical issues that
Yeah. So
went with
we
it.
started out saying, okay, well, let's build a college curriculum.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we were building out an outline. We were
Yeah, we
looking at
still have
all the
it.
different financial literacy topics and how they connect with
Yeah,
areas of mental health. And God, we worked on that for a while.
we
And
did.
built out the outline. We built out the specifics of each class. And remember, you
Yeah, and even
built
some of
out
the
like a
structure.
16-week course.
Yeah, train the trainer, built the syllabus out. Oh yeah.
But then it just kind of came to that point where we're like, okay, if we build this thing, who's going to teach it, right?
Yeah.
Because now you would need each school would have to have their own
Yeah, their
professor
faculty
with a
member.
financial background as well as mental health background. And for me, like the idea of going down and like knocking on the doors of each college to be like, hey, we've got this great curriculum and like going door to door, like that just sounded like a massive pain in the ass.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, I remember I was laying in bed one night. I'm like, well, let's just put up a podcast or YouTube videos so that everyone can access it. And then it's not just something that one group of people can access.
Yeah. So here we are. Um, Probably good for everybody to know what our backgrounds are and what makes us like
Yeah.
why us? Like what makes
Right.
us so special that we should be talking about this?
Well, and one of the things that's really interesting, you talked about how Katrina really shifted your focus. And it actually, my professional background career shifted as well during Katrina. I was actually living in New Orleans at the time. And I evacuated and was working at a school actually here in Baton Rouge. They hired me just to work with the evacuees and
Right.
ended up working with all the kids, of course. But I really just, as a counselor, felt very overwhelmed by this idea of just this huge trauma that so many people had gone through. And
Right.
I wanted to learn more and had already planned on going to get my PhD. And somehow, through all of being evacuated, I didn't get back into my house until December, but I had a house to go back to, which was very fortunate. While I was evacuated, I applied to doctoral programs, took the GRE, did the whole thing, and really wanted to specialize in trauma and learn as much as I could about trauma.
Yeah.
And so, learning, kind of expanding my educational background to really include a lot of what I had seen and what I had experienced myself was really important to me. So I did pursue and earn a doctorate and worked at universities for years up until this past year when I started working at a residential treatment facility. So I've learned a lot over the years
Right.
about trauma and
Well,
do a little bit of private practice work as well.
well, you learned a lot and you've helped a lot of people too. Like I know you've helped me, but I know that you've definitely helped a lot of people. So after I left New Orleans and went off to school, I was an econ major, moved to Washington, D.C., did the Teach for America program for a year, taught eighth grade math in the D.C. public school system. And then I moved out west. I moved to Albuquerque. I ended up getting my MBA, but I still, all that time, I still didn't quite know what I wanted to do. Always had this feeling like I wanted to be a stockbroker. I remember seeing Wall Street I think I was 12 when I saw Wall Street. I was just like, that's what I want to do. I want to be sleazy Gordon Gecko. That's what I want to do. But I was working at an ad agency and I was doing business development for an advertising agency here. And I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna go and be a financial advisor. And this was in early 2000s and ended up starting my career as an advisor in 2003. And what was interesting, even as I went through the licensing process, got my Series 7, got my Series 66, got my state life and health license, got all the licenses, I still had in my mind that I was going to be a financial planner and a stockbroker. And
Yeah.
once I got licensed and I officially became an agent in production, right? You go through all this training, you get licensed, and then they say, okay, you're in production now. The first thing my manager told me was, you have to sell like a lot of life insurance, right? And I was like, huh? I was like, what? That wasn't part of the equation.
I had no
But
idea.
but what I learned um, very quickly was how important insurance is and developed like
Right.
a real appreciation, not only for its importance, but also for all the different uses of it as well. And things
Right.
that, they never teach us. We don't learn any of these things. When we talk about financial literacy, we don't learn these things. And one of the things you had mentioned to me was that you had reached out after you saw me presenting at our state Senate or our state House of Representatives, and I was advocating for financial education in our schools. And one of the things I told them was, I have all these I got these degrees in economics and MBA and all this, but I didn't actually learn basic financial literacy until I became a financial advisor and financial planner and started walking people through their own budgets and all these different things. It's a cruel joke, is what I told them. I said it's a cruel joke that we hold people to these high standards of how you should know how to budget, how
Hmm.
you should know how to manage debt, how you should know all these things without actually teaching these things.
It's like
And
parenting.
yeah, we're just
You're
expected to
supposed to
know.
be good at it without being taught how to do it.
Yeah, you're just expected to come out of the womb knowing how to
Yeah.
do all these things.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work that way. Like all of these are skills that need to be taught. There are skeptics who say, well, you should know not to spend too much. Well, not really.
Well, and
They're
they're
in,
really powerful forces out there telling you how to spend your money,
right,
and media and commercials and now influencers. Like there is a lot out there telling you how to spend your money, and most of it is not really healthy. It's
right,
really powerful. It can have a lot of influence over your financial decision making, especially if you don't have any financial literacy foundation, which I
right.
can assure you I have had very little. My
Yeah,
parents started a checkbook for me when I was in high school, and I
yeah,
thought, well, I know everything now.
yeah. I mean,
Well,
same. I mean, my parents did a lot of things for me
yeah,
but I didn't know. Right? So that info didn't really trickle down and get ingrained in me as a habit. And they did wonderful things, but I didn't know. We get in and can get into these habits based on the information that we receive, and you can get into these spending habits and all these different things that can also get you in a lot of trouble, right?
right.
So you get all these cues, these social cues that are telling you to how to consume, but you don't get a lot of social cues on how to manage money. And that's why we're here. So that's one of the things I'm excited about. The other thing I'm super excited about with this is I know I am not a mental health professional. So I am not here to give mental health advice or any level of expertise. So I'm excited to just kind of bounce ideas off of you over the course of this and see how the information that I have and the information I know, how that
Mhm.
really resonates in people's well-being and mental well-being.
Agreed. Agreed. And like I said earlier, I've already learned so much from you as it relates to financial literacy and all aspects. We've talked about, like you said, we've talked about insurance and budgeting and investing and even just like kind of some cool statistics or historical numbers and things that I would like thought I wouldn't be interested in. And I find it really fascinating. And you said something just a little while ago. Okay, we have known each other for a long time. I didn't know that you were Teach for America. I didn't know that. And I had a light bulb moment. And I was like, of course, because you are such a good teacher. You really break down big ideas into manageable, digestible pieces. And I knew you had that skill, but I didn't know that you had, used
Was
it
an
to teach
actual
later.
classroom teacher. And what's funny about that is when I talk to clients,
Mm-hmm.
I tell them that. And I'm like, look, I taught eighth graders in the Washington, D.C. public school system.
Yep.
I expect you to interrupt me. I expect you to have questions. No, seriously, I expect you to interrupt me. I expect you to have questions. I expect to explain things to you multiple times,
Right.
right? Because, and that gets into what we have talked about, which is people have a lot of shame and insecurity around finances, right?
Correct.
And so one of the hardest things for people to do is actually, aside from just working up the courage to go and sit down and talk to somebody, um, actually go through the process of digging through their own finances and working through whatever emotions they're going through to get to just
Right.
work on their own stuff, right? So in some cases that could be stress, in some cases that's
Mhm.
shame. What a powerful thing it is to know that I can ask the same question over and over again, and I'm not going to be ridiculed or shamed or belittled in any way
Mhm.
to uh to get to where I want to go. And you learn some of those things you just learn from working with kids.
So you've proven my theory that everyone needs to work in a middle school at some point
Oh, I
because
agree. I agree.
teaching middle
That,
schoolers is truly a humbling experience.
let me tell you something about so the school where I taught, our eighth grade class, and this was just an eye-opening thing for me because we had eighth graders at our school who ranged in ages from 13
Hmm.
to 15 or 16. We had a school where kids would join the class or join the school partway through the school year, and
Right.
kids who would leave. We had kids who wouldn't show up for school for some periods of time. And then, Washington, D.C. has a large population of people from South and Central America. So I
Oh,
also had a bilingual classroom, and I would have kids immigrating to the US mid-year. So it was a
right,
constant sort of adjustment as a teacher
right.
to make sure that you were reaching all the kids. So I did a lot of my math lessons in English and Spanish. I minored in Spanish, so it was a good opportunity for me to work on my own skills as a Spanish speaker. It was a huge learning experience, right?
I bet.
And then living in this multicultural neighborhood in DC, like I loved it until it was time to go.
Yeah, my student teaching, my undergrad was in education, foreign language education,
Yeah,
and I did my student teaching at a high school in Atlanta that I believe there were 36 languages spoken by the students. It
yeah,
was it was just really rich cultural community, but also a lot of the students were struggling with poverty and, kids were dropping out because they had to go work. It was a high school. They were having to go work and support their families. So,
yeah,
I think just learning to be a teacher and kind of having to be flexible like that and
yeah,
like adapt, that's a skill set that I have taken with me throughout my career.
yeah. I mean, 100%. And that's my hope with what we're doing is to be able to explain all of those financial tools
Hmm.
and things that people should be able to do or should be doing, or we want them to get to the point where they are doing, or I shouldn't say should be doing, at least have an understanding of
Right, right.
what they are and be able to explain them in a way that's understandable. It's not overwhelming. It's not condescending. It's not, speaking too high up in the clouds, but not, just real talk on how some of these
Mhm.
things work and being able to reach folks and give them those tools, but also to help them understand that where they are shouldn't be a source of embarrassment or shame either. We all have life issues that pop up that will derail whatever plan, whatever high and mighty, high in the sky plan we put
Yeah.
together. Life happens and things happen that derail us from time to time. And so, I definitely want to be able to have those conversations, particularly around mental health and mental well-being and anxiety and all those things that people are actually feeling when they go through this process.
I agree. And, I think everything that you just said about kind of destigmatizing asking for help around your finances and around your monetary life. I think the same is true for mental health. And obviously, we've come a really long way here in the United States to destigmatize mental health and mental health challenges. We've come a long way, but there still are some stigmas that we face in our society that there is somehow this underlying idea that if you were a quote unquote strong person, you wouldn't have any anxiety or you wouldn't have depression. And so normalizing stress and anxiety and depression and any kind of mental health issue that impacts your financial life. I think that's a big part of this conversation as well. You
Now, I've
know,
heard you say that at some point, even if you haven't been clinically diagnosed with some
right.
sort of mental health issue, that most people go through some sort of anxiety, depression, whatever, at some point in their lives, right?
Sure. And I think, actually the field of counseling, which is I was trained as a counselor, is based on that wellness model that there's going to be a time in your life where you will need some support. And everyone needs support at times. So if you think about it, any major life change can bring about some kind of change in mood. It can alter mood in some way. And even just grief can
Hmm.
bring about, not just grief, something like grief can bring about significant changes to the mood and how your brain is working. And one of the things that I really love to do in my sessions, I did a lot when I was teaching at universities. And I even do it now when I'm just having conversations with some of the residents and even some of the therapists that work where I work, just explaining what might be happening in someone's brain related to an event or incident can be really empowering
Hmm.
to know that your brain and oftentimes your brain's trying to protect you from a sense of danger or perceived danger of some sort. So I constantly am teaching even when I'm doing therapy. But I always ask people if they're open, of course, like, are you open to hearing what might be happening in your brain? And they say yes most of the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think everyone can really benefit from understanding themselves a little bit more. So I think what you're saying is we are here to help people bring about their own self-awareness around their money and their mind, and to take a lot of those conversations out of the shadows, so to speak. And I just keep thinking, I think I've shared this saying with you, and it's a saying that you hear a lot in addiction work, but I
Hmm.
think it's true for everyone. It's you're only as sick as your secrets. You and I talk about how people don't want to talk about money because it feels shameful. People don't want to talk about, anxiety or depression because they feel ashamed. Like, let's just like bring it out in the open. Let's talk about it.
Well, you're talking about all these different impacts of mental health challenges, and one of the things that we've discovered or that we've seen is they play off of each other, right? So
Right,
people with who are going through either long-term or short-term
right.
mental health challenges, it impacts how they approach their financial decisions, whether that leads to debt, whether that leads to difficulty seeking out a professional. Sometimes it may lead to difficulties going to the bank, right?
Or being
So,
employed.
or being employed, right? And
Yeah.
all of those have financial implications, and vice versa, right? Somebody on the financial end who may have made some difficult financial decisions or gotten themselves in debt. Now those financial issues are leading to mental health challenges. So we'll be diving into that a little bit more as well. So what do you think of our name?
I love her name. Okay, so Chad and I have been talking about this for a long time. And we were really stuck. We were stuck on the name, and we have
We had a
tried
bunch.
so many things. Oh my goodness, we have gone through, and then we'd like check and see, does someone else have this? And is anyone else doing this? Like money on your mind, and all these kind of play on words. And we were talking about just kind of financial wellness. And Chad accidentally said financial hellness. And I was like, oh, what did you just say?
Yeah, it was
That's
a total
totally
accident.
it. It was an accident, but it's a
But it works.
perfect happy accident because if you think about like how painful it can be. And I even think back, like when I was in my doctoral program and I was like brokety broke. And it was hell because I was in my 30s and my friends were just kind of starting to like be able to like do things like, buy nice cars and travel and I was like really struggling. Financial challenges and stress and depression, like they can feel like hellness.
Yeah. I remember when I was working in my 20s, I was working in DC and money was tight. I had just stopped teaching. I only taught for 1 year, but I just
Yeah.
stopped teaching. I really wasn't making that much money. My girlfriend at the time was also teaching, and I was working in an office, and I remembered that we didn't have any toilet paper. So I went to the bathroom at the office building and took a
Yep.
roll of toilet paper and brought it home.
Been there.
And I remember one of my coworkers was like, dude, are you stealing toilet paper? I was like, yeah, I'm taking this toilet paper home right now because we don't have any and
You
I
got
can't afford
caught.
it. Hmm?
You don't have a purse. You got
I
caught
don't have
because
a
you
purse. No, I had a briefcase, but the briefcase wasn't going to cut it. I had to stick it in the
whoops.
briefcase, but I couldn't actually close it all the way.
Oh,
So yeah,
and it needed to last all weekend.
you're right. You're right. Actually
Mm.
it needed to last till payday, which was like a day or two. So no, so we both get it, right? So we've
Yeah.
been there. And I think that's what I like too, is very rarely will we see someone, and I'll, in our respective professions,
Right.
um, who will have issues that we haven't either seen or actually lived. I'm excited about that, just to have like real talk, like down to earth, like we're not preaching from some high mountain, talking
Yeah.
down to folks. Be like, yeah, look, I've been there. I get it.
And we're probably like I could probably tell you stupid things I've done recently. Like I'm still doing dumb shit.
Yeah, I still do my fair share of dumb shit. So before we close up, I just wanted to talk a little bit more around stigma and stress and
Huh?
what you've seen and how you think we'll be able to impact folks, particularly when we talk about issues around planning and
Mhm.
financial planning to be specific. But how do you see those connections and how do you think we'll be able to impact folks?
I think one of the things that might be, and this is me just kind of thinking in terms of how we could potentially impact people. If someone is feeling a great deal of shame about their finances and they're feeling a great deal of anxiety and worry, the likelihood of them going to a financial planner is probably pretty low. And I think as you and I start talking more about what the potential is of either finding a resource in your community or learning different strategies, or even finding a mental health professional in your community that you can speak to. I think the more that we give information about what potential is out there, the more likely people are to be able to feel more empowered. And so my hope is like it's a lot easier to sit and listen to a podcast than it is to get all your finances together and go see a planner. It's a whole lot easier to listen to a podcast than to look through your insurance, see which therapists are out there and who's available, who has an opening. So I hope that this really lays the foundation for people to start the process of looking inward in a less threatening way. And then you can eventually find the resources that are going to be right for you. And
Yeah.
not everybody may need that. They may just need, a funny story here and there to be able to say, okay, everyone makes mistakes and I can try this.
Yeah. You said something interesting about, people being willing to see someone. I think the other thing, one of the things I hope too, is there's actually a certain degree of a stigma around the financial services industry.
Oh
That
yeah,
it's
I
these
think
super stuffy
you have to be
Wall
rich
Street.
to go to a
Right,
financial
right.
planner.
You have to be
That's what I always
rich.
thought.
You have to be ready. They have this image of like the Wall Street, guy in the suits. And the reality is that a lot of financial folks are just down to earth people, just trying to help other people, have a career and help other folks. And they're not judgmental, many of them. They're actually just trying to help. So hopefully, we can help to kind of break down those stigmas as well. In our next episode, we'll dig into the benefits of planning.
Oh, yes, music to my ears.
So as we wrap up today, again, want to thank everybody for listening. Make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button on your platform and also share with your friends. We will be getting into a lot of different topics and a lot of great conversations. And we'll try not to dig too deep into our high school years of bar hopping in New Orleans,
But if we must.
if we must. We might have to have a whole episode on our own challenges based on growing up in the bars in New Orleans
I
as
know it probably
teenagers.
wasn't very healthy.
I don't think, well, we're here. So
We made it. We made
so
it.
well, thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next week.
Thanks so much, y'all.